Welcome to the Joseph Priestley Society lecture series. My name is Miranda Bennett, and I am a philanthropy manager at the Science History Institute. The Joseph Priestley Society, known as JPS, is a volunteer-supported program that promotes a deeper understanding of science, technology, and industry, with an emphasis on innovation and entrepreneurship. Today's program is focused on the history of our urban spaces as sites of regeneration through composting and schoolyard gardens. Before we hear from our panelists, I want to highlight the Science History Institute's mission to share the stories behind the science that shape our everyday lives. Through our free, publicly accessible digital collections and programs, we encourage everyone to explore the history of green spaces in cities. In our oral history collection, you can hear Katrina Baxter talk about the role that urban gardens can play in reclaiming the ability to sustain ourselves through the land. And in our Distillations magazine, you can read about the development of EcoFlex, a compostable plastic created by BASF in 1998. Can plastic truly be compostable? Perhaps our panelists can answer that question today. I encourage you to search our digital collections and website, where you'll find many other stories behind the science of composting and gardening. And our moderator for today's program is Keith Wing, who is a life sciences strategic advisor. He received his BA from UCLA and his PhD from UC Riverside Davis. After postdoctoral research at UC Berkeley, he spent 29 years as a senior research associate team leader at Roman Haas and DuPont Ag and Central Research and Development, working on agrochemical discovery, renewable chemicals, and microbial detection. He then consulted independently in those same areas from 2012 to 2023. He has served on the executive committee of the Science History Institute's Joseph Priestley Society for 12 years. Keith, welcome, and thank you for moderating today.
Thanks for the introduction, Miranda. And for everybody that's listening, here we are, Earth Day. It's a great day to celebrate. And we just want to remind everybody that in so many ways, both large and small, we want to encourage people to support the people, the programs, and the companies and nonprofits that advance sustainability, not only of the country and the earth, but also our communities. And there are examples of that from the city of Philadelphia, for example. There's a city's Office of Sustainability that's working on climate mitigation, municipal energy, climate resilience, and environmental justice. Philadelphia has a goal of cutting carbon emissions by 80% by 2050. There's a lot of work going on by residents you can buy renewable energy to lower household emissions. People can help protect rivers and our parkways and things like that. So what we'd like to do is encourage people to support the people and the programs and companies and nonprofits that both pay attention to our everyday life, but also think in the long term to help make things sustainable. And towards that end, we have two excellent speakers, Tim Bennett and Peggy Prevoznik Heins. Tim will be speaking first, and he started Bennett Composting with $100 and a desire to make composting easier for Philadelphians. Today, Bennett Compost actively works with over 9,000 residents, businesses, and community groups and schools and municipal partners to collect over 5 million pounds of food scraps for composting every year, making it the largest curbside composting program in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Bennett Compost employs 40 people and operates two permitted composting facilities processing 1,000 tons per year of food waste. Tim lives in Philly with his wife and three kids. In addition, we have another fine speaker, Peggy Prevoznik Heins, who joined Healthy Foods for Healthy Kids, which is a program she'll talk about in 2024. And she wanted to promote HFHK's vision for a school garden in every pre-K through middle school in Delaware. As the Director of Strategy and Advancement, she helps articulate the organization's strategic direction, map and monitor the accompanying growth plan, and manage internal operations for its growing team. As an educator and community organizer at heart, Peggy is the founder and former CEO of Servium Girls Academy, a math and science teacher, a former director of parish social ministry at Catholic Charities, and many other roles. And with that, we'd like to start with Tim. So take it away, Tim.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm excited to talk about what we do in composting, and more importantly, I'm excited to answer people's questions. So hopefully, I will keep my remarks relatively brief, and we'll get some good questions from all the wonderful attendees who are here. Go ahead and share my screen so that you guys can see what I'm going to be showing.
Oh, one quick addition. Please put any questions that you have in the Q&A box, not in the chat box, please. Thank you.
All right. As Keith mentioned, I am Tim Bennett. I'm the founder and president of Bennett Compost. This is me who Uh, when I started 17 years ago, that was one of my first compost piles in a community garden in South Philly. So as Keith mentioned, I started kind of very small scale. I was living in South Philly in a second floor apartment, and I wanted to do some composting. Didn't have a good way to do it, so I kind of set out to figure that out and figured there might be some more folks like me. Today, we are a 40-person company, even more people in this last team photo we took last year. And we are collecting food scraps from all over Philadelphia, from businesses, households, residents, and we're collecting those food scraps and we're making them into compost that is going back to Philadelphia homeowners and gardeners to grow more fruit and vegetables and flowers. So what we do is that we do collections and we make compost and we make that compost into soil products. So we go out into the world and we do collections via electric bicycle, which we do about a third of our collections via electric bicycle. We do collections via small um, pickup trucks, and we use some larger trucks for the commercial work that we do. We then bring that material back to a two facilities that we run here in the city of Philadelphia, and we make that material into compost. We kept about 5 billion pounds of food scraps out of landfills last year, and then we're blending that with kind of an equal amount of brown waste. So that's wood chips, leaves, and some straw to make the compost that we're making. And then that material goes back. We sell a lot of it as bagged and a little bit in bulk back to Philadelphia homeowners and farmers and urban growers, and really trying to keep everything as local as possible. Why should you care about composting? And I just should mention that, like, the idea of composting is that we're taking people, instead of people throwing away food scraps, they're collecting those food scraps in containers that we're providing, and we are making it into soil products that is used to grow food that is making that people eat, and then they have more food scraps. So it's a circular process. And the idea, and I think it's appropriate because we're at the Science History Institute today, of keeping food scraps separate from regular trash is not a new idea. In fact, in Philadelphia, for most people through the early 80s, for some people, some neighborhoods up to the early 90s, there's actually a separate collection of food scrap from pig farmers in New Jersey. So the city actually contracted with pig farmers to collect that material, take it to feed the pigs at there's some large pig farms over in South Jersey. And so this idea that we keep our organic material and our food scraps separate from our kind of regular trash is not a new idea. In fact, it's an idea that's been around for a long time. Um, in composting, the reasons to do it is that it reduces waste, right? Up to 50% of the municipal garbage could be composted, right? Your food scraps, yard trimmings, paper, wood waste, so much more. Uh, the finished product compost then enhances the soil. So in addition to these waste reduction benefits, you get better soil. That better soil that helps plants to grow bigger and more disease free. It helps improve the soil structure for all the living creatures in the soil, increases the microbial activity. It makes the soil able to retain water and help with erosion, so that you're not having as much runoff during kind of large rain events. Composting creates more jobs per ton of material than it does if you throw it away, and that's because, again, it's not just going to a landfill or incinerator; it's being made into a new product, and that product is being manufactured and is being sold, and all of those things are kind of activities that require humans to do them. On top of that, Community composting, where people are composting in their neighborhoods, also tends to bring people together. And once people get together and start working on projects, they start talking about other common issues and they solve other problems. The same person who is a part of your community garden and you're doing composting with kid may go to school and you may be able to kind of deal with issues around school funding or school yeah, issues with your school, right? So this kind of idea of bringing people together, there are some real human aspects to it as well. And last but certainly not least, composting is a way to help protect the climate. When you throw food away, it either goes to a landfill, which is a fancy word for a hole in the ground, where it will decompose anaerobically, which means without oxygen, and produce methane gas, which is an incredibly harmful gas when it comes to climate change, much more harmful than just regular carbon dioxide. Or it goes to an incinerator, which is a fancy word for burning it. And when it goes to an incinerator, it generates pollutants that cause all kinds of health issues for people who live near the places where those incinerators are. Additionally, we've learned in the last, 10 or 15 years that compost actually helps with the carbon cycle and helps soil to pull the plants that pull soil carbon out of the air, which is part of their natural life cycle, to then help the soil hold on to more of that carbon. So it's not just reducing the amount of carbon that goes into the air, it's pulling carbon out of the air and helping it stay in the ground. So really cool stuff. So our goal is just to kind of make composting. We think if we can make composting simple, people will do it. So that's what we do. We provide them with containers and people put them in. Here's a example of a kid at a recreation center, and they're just emptying their lunch scraps that they didn't eat into the bucket for composting. You know, our big picture goals with this is to show all Philadelphians a better, and when we say better, we mean cleaner, kind of more earth friendly, socially and economically beneficial way to manage their garbage. And we think composting is a way to do that. We talked about how it creates jobs, talked about how it helps reduce waste and helps combat climate change. We talked about how there's a lot of kind of benefits from this material. But we also want to do it in a way that is focused on developing small and medium, locally owned, people-centered composting facilities. Right? You can see this is an actual picture from our facility, and you can see that there are apartments right across the street from there, right? And that's really what we believe is that composting can be done at a scale where it's still effective, but when you do it smaller and you spread it and you have lots of facilities, people will get more benefits. The material travels less far, and you do it in a way that does not cause problems for the people who live there. We've done a lot of this to do and part of what is achieving all these things is kind of working on partnerships. So both of the facilities that we operate that we have permitted are both municipal partnerships, one with the city's Department of Rec, where they are providing space for us to do the composting in exchange for collections from every rec center after school program in the city. The other one is a partnership with the with the Philadelphia Department of Prisons, where we are helping to manage all of their internal material from their operations, providing vocational training to folks who are currently incarcerated there through once or twice a year cohort that we run that teaches both composting and also kind of other agricultural skills so that folks have some skills when they are released that they can maybe use to get jobs. And we've also hired folks through that program. We've got community partnerships. So we partner with local nonprofit groups, farms, school. This is actually a picture from Saul High School where we help them to manage both the material that they get out of their dairy barns. Saul High School is Philadelphia's only agricultural high school and is one of only two remaining public agricultural high schools in the country with livestock. Since they have livestock, cows, sheep, they have manure, and they have to manage that manure, and they do that through composting. We also help them manage the food waste from their cafeteria through there. So, and it's the only high school in the school district that is currently composting their food waste. We have partnerships with industry. So we run other industry partners. So we run two relatively small scale composting facilities here in the city. Each of them can handle around 500 tons a year of food waste for their permit. But if you do some quick math, you realize that's not all the material that we're collecting. So we also partner with some slightly larger facilities, still on the medium sized scale in the grand scheme of things, but regional facilities that are 15 or 20 miles outside the city in Montgomery County to process the material that we are not yet able to process at our facilities. So this is kind of part of growing that structure is not just operating on our own, but working within the bigger picture to find partners, help them develop and build their system so that everyone is composting and everyone is able to kind of have that opportunity and that option. And last, and I keep coming back to this, is people, right? Like we really believe in investing And none of this is possible without the people we hire, and we promote the people from within. We've hired a number of people who have been formerly incarcerated, and as a second chance employer, we believe that's kind of an important skill. And whether they stay with us for the long term or whether we're a stepping stone to something else, we kind of see like these working with people and investing in people kind of, and not just systems or machinery, is kind of really key to how we build and how we grow a people focused composting system that can handle all the waste here in Philadelphia. Um, Next steps for expanding, right? We're doing a lot of good work, but 9,000 households is still less than 2% of the households in Philadelphia. So what do we need more of? I think the three things we need more of, and we're always looking for help finding, is one, we need more education. So we're always looking to do education and opportunities and talk to people, whether they're kids or adults, like adults like you guys today, or kids like you see in the picture. Spread the news about composting, why it's good and how we can do it. Second thing is we need more infrastructure. So we need more sites. And again, I would emphasize small and medium scale sites to really get all of the benefits to flow to local communities and the people who live within them, like the model that we've built. And finally, we need more partnerships, right? Like the more we're working together, the more we can get accomplished. And um, I think there's a saying that's, you can go, if you want to go fast, go by yourself, but if you want to go far, go as a group. And so we're really trying to take composting as far as we can here in Philadelphia and the region. And so we're looking for all the partnerships we can find to help with that. That's all I have for now. I'm happy to take questions later on. I'm excited to hear the other presentations, and thank you all for being here.
Thank you very much for your fantastic overview, Tim. That was really, really illuminating. And there are a few questions piling up, and I've got a few myself. As for now, I think we will proceed on to Peggy's presentation. So, Peggy, if you could share your screen and take it away.
Sure. All right. Hello, everybody. It is a pleasure to be here. It is an honor. I got to figure out how to present here. There we go. Um, uh, all right. Let's go back. So, I am Peggy Prevoznik Heins. I work with Healthy Foods for Healthy Kids, and we are the first state school garden experts. Dr. Theanda Manzara is our founder, and she brought the whole idea of school garden education here to Delaware in 2005. She was part of Alice Waters' Edible School Garden Project, where they began a dedication to transform public education by using organic school gardens, kitchens, and cafeterias to teach academic subjects and the value of nourishment, stewardship, and community. And Dr. Manzara was very concerned that kids did not know where food came from. And in Delaware, at the time, and actually still, our access to food, healthy foods, the rates of obesity and diabetes in children was above the national average. It continues to be that way. And so there's many efforts going on. And she believed, and we continue to believe, that school garden education is the foundation for adjusting that. So our mission is as stated, providing youth with joyful school gardening experiences and opportunities to eat the garden fresh vegetables they grow. We are a seed to cafeteria model. And our goal is to have a school garden in every school every school in Delaware. And this gives you a picture of where we are. So currently these are public school data. So we're in 63 public schools. We have a plan to grow by 10 schools a year through 2028. That's the purple. And then to expand so that we'll be in 75% of the early learning, elementary, and middle school in Delaware by 2030. HFHK is an inclusive school-based program, so we focus on cool weather crops. and the entire season happens in the fall and the spring. And we help children connect classroom science lessons with garden skills and their food. And the Newton, what we realize, which I'll get to more, is that we want to be a little bit more explicit about the nutritional aspects of it. This was started as a science program, and more we recognize we have to be incorporate more information in that. But it is science research has shown that the earlier and the more often children are introduced to vegetables, the more likely they will eat them later in life. So the foundations of an HFHK partnership, all our schools, it's all driven by demand, often by word of mouth. And as districts or learn about us, they want their schools to get this program, and then teachers change, they bring the program to theirs. So our rate of growth in the last couple of years is 15, on average, 15 to 18% a year. So and now we'll be at 10 schools per year. HFHK is the back end. We onboard schools, we train everybody at the school, and we build the infrastructure. And then we support the teams going on throughout as long as they're in the partnership. So that's some of what we do. This is down in Lewis, in Delaware. So that first season, first of all, there's a whole year prior to the first season where we onboard and work with the school, identify the site, work with their facilities and nutrition. But then we go in and we actually train every teacher, because every student's involved typically. We work with nutrition staffs. We provide webinars and handbooks. We teach them what each vegetable looks like. Second growing season, we step back a little bit. And then, as I said, going on, we continue to provide the seasonal maps in conjunction with their garden coordinators. And we do site visits, and we intervene when there's tech needed. So HFHK is there to support these teachers throughout the partnership. As we mentioned, it is seed to cafeteria. All of these lessons are based in the next generation science standards. It is a pretty easy, and it is a reasonable program. The first year investment is the largest, but then as you'll see going on, it really costs about $5,000 a year. It's inclusive. Every child, doesn't matter. We adapt gardens to fit the student needs. We have a school garden at the Delaware School for the Deaf. We just built a garden at Delaware's school dedicated to autistic and neurodiverse learners, and many other special needs. We're in, I think at least a dozen language and immersion schools, and that's another project we're working on, is translating everything to help balance that. And after 20 years, we have it's actually, say 95, I think it's closer to 97% partner school retention. These are how the science lessons in the classroom connect with the garden lessons. And the vast majority of our schools are elementary, so they're usually specific grades aligned with the science standards, but every school adapts it. We have early learning centers that started back in 2019, I believe, and we now have 4 of them. And actually, our first few schools were middle schools. Those lessons go deeper, obviously. So, and then as a seed to cafeteria, every student gets a chance to eat these vegetables. The 4th and 5th graders typically are the students dedicated to harvesting. There's 2 harvests a season. And they know how to harvest, and they clean the vegetables outside in their outside garden, and then in order to bring them to, as you can see, the school cafeteria. And Tim, you'll be happy to know, every garden composts. School garden, wait, did I miss one? So one, what does school garden education do? It helps eating well. Students are tasting, and we're finding that they love their, what they call salad, doesn't matter what green we're growing. It is, I gotta move that. Sorry if that was in the way. Living well. It helps increase teamwork and understanding. Over and over again, what we hear from our schools is all these ancillary benefits beyond the science, how these kids work together, how they have such a sense of responsibility towards something that they're growing, that they recognize they have the capacity to do something. And then they get to move, they're outside, they connect in with their hands, with their bodies, the lessons that they're learning in the classroom. Kids get to hear they get interested in growing their food, and they become champions of change. A way to think about this for those of us old enough to remember the anti-smoking, that often kids brought home their concern that helped parents stop smoking. So I'm sorry, wrong place. All right. So some of our studies, currently we're working with the University of Delaware to do some research. It is still early in the research study. So that is down here, that 93% of our parents surveyed said that they were adding vegetables, that school garden education, they want to add school garden education to the garden curriculum. And 67% noticed that their child's eating habits are changing. And you can see how that the students are trying them. They get excited. It's out there for everybody to try, and you will see some of them, as this young man did, popped it right in his mouth. And I would say Keith addressed the school that I ran. We became a Healthy Foods for Healthy Kids garden partner in 2016 or 17, I can't remember. And our kids, all urban, in neighborhoods that didn't always facilitate outdoor play. And for those brand new to the garden, it was very intimidating. They didn't like bugs. They didn't like dirt. And by the second, third season, they were knee deep in the soil. They were pulling out radishes and eating them from the grounds. We grew strawberries because we were year-round school. We had a little more flexibility. We would just pull the produce off the vines and eat them. It was really remarkable. Whoops, sorry, go back. So talking about what it costs, it takes a lot of time and expertise to help guide schools and build the program, build the infrastructure and train the teachers. So the very first year is significant. It's a $25,000. It's actually usually takes about 2 years of back and forth meetings, raising the money, which HFHK almost single-handedly does. We raise the money for that first year. We also find that we started with wooden beds, and about 10, 12 years in, we need to replace them. So that's what we call a rebuild. And then to continue the garden program, and this is all materials, all education materials, our time costs about $5,000 a year. So it is very sustainable. And these are some of our partners. Like Tim, we cannot do this alone. We rely on our government, our local and regional corporations, local businesses and foundations, and of course, our individual donors to provide the sponsors. These are some of them. Our largest, and these are all fairly new, is just in 25, we received a over $500,000 from the Longwood Foundation for 3 years to build 10 gardens per year through 28. Delaware Department of Education, brand new through the USDA, provided us an over $100,000 to build 6. The second, the 4 are, I think 2 are in their second season, and 4 just started their first season of growing. We have received second time in a row USDA specialty crop block grants. And then just this past week, we were one of 52 organizations, the only one in Delaware, awarded the USDA Farm to School to, again, help support building those 10 schools for the next few years. So food is medicine is it is a growing movement. It is there's a lot of hands-on in Delaware, and we partner with a lot of the healthcare units. And what we're finding is that by educating people early in life, we are building the foundation for the success of food is medicine currently, where kids bring their information home to their families and ask for this kind of food, but also to helping integrate these systems that make food as medicine successful. So I apologize, I don't know how I missed that slide. So go on. How can you help? You can donate, you can follow us, you can share the word about the impact of school garden education. It is amazing to watch these kids get so excited and learn about how they have control over their body growing and the science that they learn behind it. It's just remarkable. And then I would say, thank you. And that is our governor at Newcastle County Elementary today, where he came to visit our school garden. So thank you. Thank you for your time, and I'm eager to answer questions.
Well, thank you very much, both Tim and Peggy, for really, really enlightening presentations. I mean, I think it generates quite a bit of thought and quite a bit of questions in my mind, at least. We had a question about partnerships in the Q&A session, but I think quite a few partnerships have already been illustrated. If you'd like to illuminate on that for just very briefly, then we have other questions we could get onto. So would you guys like to talk very briefly about your partnerships again to reemphasize this point?
Were there specific partnerships that people had questions on, or just generally?
No, just generally.
I mean, I think that our partnerships tend to fall into, we're obviously a business and we run our own operations, but we tend to partner with 3 kinds of groups of people. One are community groups and nonprofits who are looking to do work and don't have the capacity to do it themselves. And so we often provide some of the technical expertise and knowledge, help them kind of build out programs. The second group is, there's industry partnerships with other kind of people in the composting industry. And so that can be whether it's just exchanging guidance and technical knowledge again, or whether it's more on having them do some processing for us or just do some collections for them or things like that. There are municipal partnerships where we're providing services to various different departments in the city to help them compost their internal wastes. In theory, we could look at in the future, there may be partnerships to process kind of the public's waste. There aren't a lot of that stuff yet, but that doesn't mean it couldn't happen in the future. And then just partnerships, those are kind of like the 3 bigger outside partnerships, and then just partnering with our people to continue to help them improve and grow and kind of achieve their potential and help us achieve ours.
Very good.
But I can talk more about any of those at length if people have kind of specific questions about any of them.
Well, you've left your contact information so people can get in touch with you if they wish, right?
For sure. Yeah.
Now, do you have any comment on that very briefly? Because we have to move on to other questions.
Yeah, I would just say that our primary partnerships are the schools, and they come to us and we work directly with them. Interestingly, again, our school started as a science education program. It still is. And a lot of our corporate partners were your FMCs, Cortevas. And as we grow and move into this food as medicine, some of our greatest supporters are our health systems, Nemours, Christiana Care. We're working now with BB and Bay Health. So they become partners, and we work very closely with the University of Delaware. They have done research for us in the past, but this new research project is it's evolving, and as we bring in the nutrition piece, we anticipate a new one. So, and then of course, government, and we cannot do it without government funding. So we continue to build that partnership at all levels.
Very good. Very good. So I'm going to make a point. I don't know if the viewing audience is aware of this, but somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 40% of everything that we grow in the United States gets wasted, does not find its way to consumers' mouths or the fiber that we depend on. 30 to 40%. That's after our petrochemical or hydrocarbon input costs, the agrochemicals, the labor that's involved, all that stuff, and then the transport and delivery, 30, 40% that's wasted. So for both of you, I'd like to pose a question. Do you see, like in sustainable efforts, like some opportunity for more jobs in the urban area to address this and related issues on sustainability? I mean,
Um, yeah,
growth
no,
of
I mean, I was giving I can let Peggy go first, or Peggy, I can
Sure.
chime in, whatever you think.
Yeah, I can. First of all, it is a very humbling statistic.
yeah.
But I would say the other industry I forgot that we are working with more, and it's going to be slow, is the ag industry. And what we believe is the more we educate our children, I mean, we have to understand we directly are not building jobs, but what we believe we're building is the foundation for interest in things like agriculture, food. And one of the projects that we are also moving towards is building those pathways, or what's called CTEs, in high school. And we are working with specific districts and the government, DDOE, to actually strengthen the connection between school garden and their ag pathway, their education pathway, their culinary pathway, that will then open it up to hopefully careers in those fields. Delaware is largely agricultural, and we don't want to see that land get wasted or lost.
Exactly.
So,
Yep.
Yeah, no, I think that Peggy makes a lot of good points. I think I would add that, I think two parts. One is that the first part, composting is super important, but the first part is, of it is always is reducing, right? So it's like reducing what we're overproducing, and then finding a way to feed people before we making compost out of it. But on top of that, I think that that's part of why we're emphasizing, and I think, um, part of the challenges with the agricultural system is that the more we can do things in kind of a local and kind of a local fashion, and the closer we are to the food that we're producing, the easier it is to get it to people to eat, and the more we can have a better sense of what we need. And when we do it in those ways, I think you'll see a reduction in that, and then just making sure that we've got systems in place to capture that material. So what we're currently viewing as waste, we're able to find to make into kind of renewable resources, like compost and other soil products, so that we can grow more food. Because the one thing that we know is that we're always going to have to eat. So we're going to have to figure out how to do that, and do that in a sustainable way.
Hmm. Yeah, on a kind of a superficial level, you'd like to feed people first, maybe compost after, and then perhaps generate energy rather than having things go to waste. So that's just a
Yeah,
gratuitous
all
comment.
those things.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, I actually have a question from Miranda. How do we define healthy? Who defines what healthy is? And how has our understanding of a healthy life changed? So it relates back to your food as medicine comment, Peg. So you can take a first crack at it, Peg, and then Tim, if you have a thought too.
all right. Well, the school garden SGSO, of course, as soon as I say it, the SO went out of my support organization. They approach it they say a holistic approach to student well-being that combines nutritious eating, ecological connection, and personal empowerment through school garden. What's healthy? It's not just physical health. It's mental and social health. It is strong social connections, healthy bodies, healthy minds. And that takes sunshine and fresh air and belief in their confidence. So I would say we approach it as a very holistic definition of healthy.
Mhm. Jim, do you have a comment?
I think that's not necessarily my area of expertise in the way that it is Peggy's, but I do think that healthy tends to mean different things to different people, and from my perspective, part of healthy is being kind of like the work that Peggy's doing and being connected to the food, right? And I think that like when you have that connection to your food, then it it tastes better, and it is you're less likely to kind of consume it without thinking about it. And I think that all helps it to feel like a healthier, quote unquote, healthier choice, healthier option. Um,
Yeah. Actually, just to follow up on what both of you said, I mean, Peg, do you have a little comment about how you may have observed that when kids participate in HFHK, if they're, let's say, having a little behavioral problems, perhaps that might improve a little bit by partaking of these types of activities in the manner you're speaking of?
So that again, this is something that the UD research project is assessing by working with surveying teachers and then their parents. But anecdotally, I can tell you that over and over again, when you ask the teachers what do they think, they'll say the children love being in the garden. They cannot wait. That I envision this woman saying, Joey, I don't know what his name was, that we take some of the most challenging students in terms of just like inability to sit still, and they walk around and visit the gardens and they're centered. So there, and we all know that you take a minute to get out of the noise and the demands, and you go outside, you breathe fresh air, you feel
And
sunshine.
and the devices, Peg. The
And the devices. Oh my gosh, yes. Um, which more and more, thankfully, and as a middle school uh, CEO, oh, they were a challenge. And we're moving further away from that inside the schools now, and that's a good thing. But to get these kids out and moving and have their fresh air, I would see it with my own students. They'd come back in and they'd be calmer, even if it was just for a half hour. Teachers will take a half hour.
Mhm. Yep, yep. So I have another question from Miranda. So you guys can probably thought about this a little bit, but what does it mean to bring green into the urban environment rather than leaving sort of rural, urban, sorry, leaving spaces wild and green beyond urban, boundaries. So one versus the other, bringing parks and green areas into a city versus leaving them untouched and forested, for to say. You guys thought about that a little bit?
I don't know whether I think I think it's a little bit of you need both, right? I think you do need kind of like wild areas that are untouched and aren't kind of these kind of manicured areas. But I also think that like as long as we're going to have cities, then we're going to need space in those cities for to grow food, and we're going to need space to get a respite from some of the other kind of hectic parts of the city. I mean, I lived for many years. I lived in South Philly, and even just that little pocket park or that little community garden. That's we got started doing community gardens in South Philly that were right next to row homes, but just having a place with a little bit of tree and a little bit of a bench to sit on and a little bit of place to dig your hand in the dirt, I think goes along. Does I don't think it replaces kind of the awe of the kind of more natural wild, right? But I think it can be a bridge to that, and it can be kind of a temporary uh, place for you to get that for a little bit when if you can't always get to that bigger place. So I think we need both, and I don't know if it's a I think we should fight to have both.
Yeah, I do
Yeah.
too. I would also say, like for at schools, we're not taking down any wild space. It's usually a space that's already usually has a lawn on it, right? And sometimes, frankly, we're even putting garden beds in a courtyard. In in urban environments, so often these community gardens are coming in abandoned plots or plots that aren't wild, except that they just haven't been used, and then it ends up preserving it
Mhm.
for for greening or agriculture or growing food as opposed to being developed. So I agree with Tim. You have to have both, and community gardens tend not to replace wildland.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So we have a question from Grace Sharpless Cook. Question for Peggy. How do you start in a new school? And do you work in Pennsylvania or do you have peer organizations in Pennsylvania?
That's a great question. So, in brief, what happens is a school will reach out and say, we're interested in a garden. We send some information, and if they continue to be interested, like there's some communication, we'll go in and we'll lay out the whole thing. We have a detailed MOU that talks about what they need to commit to, what we need to commit to. And once that's signed, we start working on all ends. We now send them resources to help them raise money. We ask everybody to raise some money. We start raising money, and we'll start working with the facilities to identify the land where we're going to grow it. It has to have sun, it has to be level, it has to be accessible to a water place, and it has to be accessible to the students, right? Um, Identify what are the needs. We build the gardens. So every garden is built to fit the school, and it is designed so that the number of kids that are going to do the planting have a space. And that means then the rest of the watering, the harvesting, and then the produce, there's enough to feed every child. So we then design it, and we actually plan and dedicate. We usually set 2 days, a rain day or a heat day, because often it's in the summer, and then a rain date, right? And we actually build a garden in one day. So another one of our partnerships are volunteers. Some of them come from our community partners, corporations, hospitals, and just local volunteers. And we build it in a day. And then our program staff goes in and trains the teachers, trains the staff, and then they work with, they go in and actually model every lesson with each teacher and each classroom that first season, and then they're there for support. So that's how it starts. I forget might have been a second part.
Yeah.
Oh,
Do you
Philadelphia.
well, Pennsylvania also.
Pennsylvania. So we have interest because I'm kind of in the advancement and strategy. I don't know as much about all our partners. I know that we are very intimately connected with school, the SGSO. So any school garden programs in the tri-state area would probably be connected. We have had interest from schools and community programs from all three of the states around us, including others across the country. And that is another thing that we are working to build, which is what would it look like for HFHK to support school garden growth in these areas?
Mhm.
So your question's a little bit ahead of us, but we're getting there.
Very, very good. Yeah, we'd love to see that in Pennsylvania. So, Tim, this is a mundane question, but does your operation go crazy in the fall when all these leaves are falling? Because I saw that you guys do take leaves, I guess, but how? I mean, it must be incredible the volume of work that must drive up in the autumn. Is that true?
Well, there tend to be seasons here at Bennett Compost, like there are seasons everywhere. I would say fall is our second busiest season. Our busiest season is actually spring. And the reason for that is because everyone who wants to buy soil products and compost wants to buy them in the spring.
No.
And we tend to have people tend to be away, but they also tend to be having more there's a lot of garden cleanups or other kind of like organic material. And so spring's our busiest. Fall is definitely our second busiest. We do get a lot of leaves in the fall, but it's just kind of we use them and it's kind of part of the cycle, right? Every season has its challenges and every season, winter and summer tend to have less material for us to collect than fall and spring, but they tend to have harder weather conditions to deal with for the collection portion of our operations. And so, I guess it's just sure. I mean, we're also probably not the primary. The other part to add is that you know, we're not the primary collector of leaves in the city, right? Like the city does its own leaf collections, and there are plenty of people who take advantage of that. So we do get lots of leaves, but it's not. We're not the primary leaf collection vehicle, probably for the entire city. But we get,
Yeah,
you're right, tons of leaves, tons of leaves.
I guess. Another question from Miranda. How has compost been adapted to urban life over the long history of amending soil to grow better crops? Could a compost company have even existed 100 years ago?
Um, I don't know whether a composting company would have existed 100 years ago, but the idea of taking organic scraps and returning them to soil is an idea that's as old as time. And as I kind of mentioned earlier, for a long time here in Philadelphia, there were pig farmers from New Jersey who would come over and collect people's organic scraps to feed their hogs, right? And so that was kind of another way that again that material has a value. It's not just we could consider it part of the waste stream, but really it has a value whether it is used to feed animals or used to feed soil, right? To make compost, right? Like we work with a number of kind of like microbreweries to compost their spent grain from their beer
Mhm.
brewing process, but there are also breweries that are feeding those to farms for their livestock to eat, right? Like this spent grain. So I think that this idea that like we're going to use our food scraps and turn them into the soil is the people folks who have been around for a while, they understand it because it's stuff that they've seen from the past. It's people kind of, I would say a little bit older than me and younger who this is kind of an idea that we're rediscovering, right? Whereas it's just really a part of kind of like human uh human history and just the way we have put nutrients back into the soil is by taking the organic material, whether it's manure or whether it's food scraps, and kind of working it back into the soil to replace it. And that's how it was created in the first place.
Yeah. Just a little irony here. My wife and I were at Reading Terminal Market yesterday, and we sat and talked with uh, a couple guys who were in the Philadelphia Convention Center for a microbrewery convention, and we talked exactly about utilization of spent grains.
There you
So
go. Yeah.
using it, you're bringing that, yeah. So it's there you go. So, it's
I
really
just want to say I grew up outside Philadelphia, and I remember in the ground, some of you may remember you had like it was like a pedal with a metal lid, and we put our garbage into there, and then a garbage truck would come and suck it out, and then we had our trash. And Tim, you talking about the history that brought it all back to me. So
Yeah. No,
I remember that.
they would, that was a big thing when I first started, and I would be I'd be out on routes, and people would be like, oh, it's like there's a big difference between the garbage and the trash, right? And so people who
Exactly.
remember that, like, remember now we kind of use these terms interchangeably, but garbage was specifically for that kind of organic
Exactly.
material.
Yeah, I just also wanted to bring up, I believe on your website, Tim, you guys do spend a little bit of time and energy on educating the public on what is compostable or what you'll collect versus what is not. So you want to elaborate on that just a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it really the short answer is it depends a little bit on like how you're doing the composting, but for us, we're able to handle any for if you're doing it yourself in your backyard, you're generally talking about food scraps and you're talking about like leaves and some other limited yard waste. but food scraps that isn't kind of meat or dairy, right? We, because of the temperatures we're able to achieve in our piles, are able to handle any kind of food scraps. We're able to handle large amounts of yard waste and weed waste that might, because our piles get hot enough to kill the weed seeds and the harmful bacteria in rotting meat. We're also able to compost some of the, I think there's a discussion coming up, but some of the compostable plastics, right? Because of the way that because of what they're made of and how they break down. So I think the short answer is we're able to handle a large kind of variety of compostable items, but it really depends on how the compost what you're able to compost depends on what is like how you're doing it, right? And some of the simplest things are things like your fruit and veggie scraps, coffee grounds, these kind of like very kind of like basic and relatively inert, or not inert, but relatively less likely to have kind of harmful bacteria in them, kind of food scraps.
Right, right. So I think that brings our Q&A session to a close. We just want to urge the audience, I mean, in all ways, large and small, try to think about ways of making your life, your community, the country, and the earth a little bit more sustainable without compromising your life too much. But I think if we are all smart people, just do a little bit every single day. Think about it, just like these two amazing organizations are, and we can chip away and make a more sustainable life for all of us. And with that, I'm going to thank both of our speakers and turn it back over to Miranda for some comments.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you to both our panelists and Keith, and thanks to everyone who's listening. I just want to add that in addition to putting on talks like today's, the very best part about the Science History Institute is that it's free and your gifts power our programming. I'd also like to remind everyone that recordings of past Joseph Priestley Society talks are posted on our YouTube channel. Please do come back for more. Let your colleagues know and your peers about our Joseph Priestley Society lecture series and other compelling programs in our museum, library, and online. This summer, we'll be announcing the program topics and dates for the 2026-27 season of the Joseph Priestley Society. So look out for that information in the Institute's e-newsletter. Please be on the lookout for more exciting events and programs hosted by the Institute. On April 10th, we celebrated the opening of our new exhibition, Flash Bang Boom, A History of Fireworks. This exhibition, which serves as our contribution to this year's 250th celebrations, explores the science and historical perspectives of a phenomenon that's familiar to everyone, fireworks. Flash Bang Boom also embodies our commitment to providing rich and captivating content that broadens our understanding of how science and society interact. And you should also save the date for Philly Fair 250, a multi-day extravaganza celebrating America's 250th birthday that takes place June 20th and 21st in Fairmount Park. Presented in partnership with Wawa Welcome America, will host 2 nights of dazzling fireworks displays, including a historically inspired spectacle featuring the dramatic burning of a temporary architectural structure, as well as a modern show that traces the evolution of fireworks into the large-scale displays audiences know today. We'll also be showcasing Flash Bang Boom at our pop-up museum in the park. You won't want to miss it. For more information on these events, please visit sciencehistory.org/events. And once again, thank you for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of Earth Day.